I would like to speak to you today about the King of Aram. Who? The King of Aram? Oh, you must be joking. Never heard of him. Well, his name was probably Hadadezer, and he reigned in what we now call Syria, and included Damascus, between 842 and 796 BC. The Bible speaks about him in several places in 2 Kings, chapters 5 to 8. What we do know is that he wasn't really a very nice man. Warlike, ambitious. He was power hungry. He would often send forces into Israel when King Ahab reigned. For evil, he even gave Ahab a run for his money. He jumped out of their way when his chariots paid a visit. But he was a bit cheeky. When his army commander Naaman came knocking on his door with the news that he had leprosy and he would like to go for a cure to the king, to Israel, the king gets his pen out and writes a letter to the king of Israel, who of course had no power to cure leprosy. Only God, through his prophet Elisha, could do that. Well, we know the story of Naaman's miraculous cure. His dealings with Elisha, however, were not finished. We can imagine a council of war in Damascus. Where is the king of Israel? Let us send an army there and do battle with him. And when they get everything together and travel, they find that the king of Israel knew of their plans all along and had moved elsewhere. Now, how did he get to know? This happens every time the king of Aram suspects a spy in the camp. Ah, how did he get to know? Well, he is a prophet, Elisha. He even knows what you say in your bedroom. They have the Lord on their side, and he knows everything. So let us get to Elisha then. Where is he? Well, he is in Dothan. Let's read a few verses from 2 Kings chapter 6 and verses 13 to 23. Go, find out where he is, the king ordered, so I can send men to capture him. The report came back. He is in Dothan. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road. This is not the city. Follow me, and I'll lead you to the man you're looking for." And he led them to Syria. This is an amazing passage, and it made me stop here and read it again. Especially these verses. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. I wonder just how often we underestimate the power of God with us. Those spiritual forces which surround the people of God, unseen yet ever present. It displays the spiritual eyes of Elisha, ever open. Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes." And this is a prayer of the man of God, and it influenced the servant. He too was able to see. The song that came into my mind was, "Open my eyes, Lord. I want to see Jesus." And sometimes we just underestimate and don't appreciate the power of God that surrounds a Christian, protects and defends. It gave confidence that the battle was God's battle and that Aram would be defeated. What a sight this must have been for the servant. Flaming chariots surrounding them. But there are similar stories as the one told in the Bible. One was about a missionary family in Tibet in the 1920s, Russell and Gertrude Morse. Bandits were known to occupy their route, so the next morning Russell sent 2 men ahead to check their path, in an area where robbers usually ambushed and robbed people. On the second night they camped near Drupalong and slept very soundly in their 3-in-1 tent. Their Tibetan companions, however, did not sleep so well and got up several times that night to check for signs of any prowling thieves. After she woke up, Gertrude asked one of the guards, "Did you see any robbers?" "No, but a very excellent watchman helped me through the night," he said with a wry smile. "Do you know who it was?" Gertrude asked. "No, I don't, because in the morning he was gone." On the return journey, a few local residents asked the question, "Who were the guards around your camp when you went through here before?" "We had no guards, but we saw them. They were very big and tall, all dressed in white. The bandits had planned to attack and rob your party, but when they saw those big guards, they were frightened and didn't dare bother you." Gertrude thought of a verse from the Bible, from Hebrews chapter 1 verse 14. God's ministering spirits, angels, sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation. I've read other stories just like this. God is a protecting God. God for his people. So what happened to Elisha and the servants? Well, God struck the army with blindness, and Elisha led them to Samaria, and the soldiers' lives were saved, and no doubt left with a deep impression of the hand of God. In pondering these verses, the Chariots of Fire film was brought to mind. Do you remember the story of Eric Liddell, the faithful, godly Olympic runner who became a missionary to the Chinese and died in a prisoner of war camp with a brain tumour? Why no chariots of fire around his life? And how about the missionary hero, Jim Elliot? We cannot see the chariot of fire in the Amazonian jungle for him. And so it goes on. The conundrum, God's permissive will, that one should be saved and not another. The tapestry of human life, its sadnesses and joys. Of COVID, some who survive and others who don't. We're in a quandary. Yet through it all, we just have to say with Paul, "For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. It might be easy to say that, but more difficult to live through it. And I wondered if eternity is the answer, and God's timing is everything, and heaven awaits, the continuum of eternal life. So God is in charge. Our God reigns in every circumstance. On one hand, the chariots of fire, and on the other, God removes us from the scene and he takes us. Paul certainly had that view of his life, and so must we, learning to trust in God for whatever the future holds. It might not seem to be fair, but the unveiling of the completed tapestry awaits. And then we will understand a God who is in control of everything. One day, the chariots of fire will part, and the corridor will lead us into the presence of God. Often the perplexing hope for the Christian is difficult from a human point of view. But we believe that he who promised is faithful. And so the psalmist would say this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight.